Good day, everyone. It's Walter, the Palmetto Cemeterian. You are joining me today in the Brutontown Society Ground Cemetery in Greenville County, South Carolina. Now, this is another one of those meetings we're having, as infrequent as they are. That is unfortunate. We have another big cemetery problem today. And what we have and what you will see today is pretty much the complete destruction of a very historic cemetery. Now, the Brutontown community has existed here since the 1870s. Bruton is one of the names of the families who lived here, but the cemetery itself predates the community and was a slave cemetery prior to the Civil War. The cemetery, if you follow my Instagram, you may have seen a video of it a little over a year ago now, or maybe a year and a half ago, where I filmed around the cemetery, kind of more the outside, and said that it was one of the worst cemeteries I'd ever seen in terms of overgrowth. And it most certainly was. There has been some lobbying for the city, or the county, the Greenville County Redevelopment Authority owns this property. And there's been some lobbying for them to take action and to clean up the cemetery and to make it more accessible to visitors. Well, I will not be pointing any fingers nor assigning any blame today in this video because, frankly, I do not know precisely who is responsible for what has happened here. But basically, as you will see, some group of people were contracted to clear the cemetery. And they brought heavy equipment inside and destroyed or severely damaged most of the grave markers. Everything from field stones to handmade, homemade grave markers, to the Sears and Roebuck catalog, sand consistency markers, Veterans Administration, veteran headstones that you can order from the government. Those have, many of them were run over, knocked over, scratched, gouged, toppled. And the cemetery is now in far worse condition than it ever was before. And I'm gonna take you around, I'm gonna show you the damage, and I'm gonna show you a humongous historic tragedy that has taken place here in Greenville, South Carolina. And I have to say, I'm extremely disappointed that this has happened, because this cemetery will never be the same again. The damage is unbelievably extensive. There are grave markers that I've looked for that I can no longer find, and I assume that they have been moved to some other part of the cemetery and either being picked up or pushed, or that they have been completely and totally annihilated, which is my ultimate fear. But I think my fear is coming true. So come with me and we'll take a look at this very heartbreaking situation. And hopefully in the coming days, we will know who precisely is really responsible for what has happened here. Whether that's the county or whether that's whoever they hired to do this, or both, I don't know. I don't know, and I will not assign blame until I do know who is responsible. So, let's go take a look. You're not gonna like what you're about to see. So here we are. We are on the immediate outskirts of the cemetery, the easiest point to access it from. Somebody came through here last night and cleaned off the faces of the headstones so that you can see to whom they belonged. But you can tell, and if you know anything about marble particularly, it's very obvious when it was damaged recently. And you can see there is freshly exposed marble. Now, if this had happened months ago, say during Hurricane Helene, which I know it didn't happen then for multiple reasons, those abrasions and breaks in the marble would be discolored, just like the face of the stone is. You can see the bottom of this one has red clay staining, And the top of it just has typical mold, mildew staining that comes with exposure to the elements. Yeah, so this one's badly scratched. That one over there is snapped in half and been scratched as well. You can see the track marks coming up through here where they were driving whatever it was, a skid steer, an excavator, maybe a little bulldozer. I don't know. You can tell the cemetery was very overgrown beforehand. Now it is not. It looks like a wasteland. This Veterans Administration marker has a serious gouge chunk taken out of it. Unbelievable. And you wonder how somebody could show up here knowing it's a cemetery. They knew it was a cemetery, ordered to clean up the property, and not notice that they were actively, oh, almost tripped there, it's very uneven ground, actively damaging and destroying the markers. So this here was a plot. I believe it was a mother and a father. And you can see that there were cinder blocks that had outlined the borders of the plot. And those are completely disordered now. And I do not think that they were like that before. There's a foot marker. It says mother on it with a bad scratch on it. I think this headstone may have gone unharmed. But I did not come here personally after Hurricane Helene, but some of my cemetery saving colleagues did after Hurricane Helene, and they told me that the cemetery pretty much looked the exact same as it did before. There wasn't really any new fall trees and things like that. There may have been some, but it really wasn't significant in any way. This stone is the back of it damaged here, and I could have sworn that the other half of it, or a large part of the top of it, was still there. But there are dirt marks where something was rubbing up against it or pushing on the stone. So this is how not to clean or clear a cemetery 101. This is the opposite of how this should have been done. This is a worst case scenario kind of nightmare. I was informed just yesterday afternoon, about 24 hours ago, that the graveyard was going to be cleared, or was, and I heard the words tractor, and as soon as I heard the words tractor or excavator, whatever it was, I knew that we were in trouble. So you can see here on this marker, which has been knocked over and broken, there is the surface, which is discolored naturally due to weather exposure, and there is the fresh break. If this had been sitting here like this for a long time, or many months, it would look like this. But you can see that is fresh, and that grave marker is badly damaged. There's really, I mean, we could head any direction, and God only knows what's buried under this. It may have been at this exact spot, but in this vicinity, there was a stone from a woman who was born in 1810, Margaret O. Griffin, I believe was her name. And it was a very small little marble stone, and if it were run over, it was completely destroyed. But I do remember that it was somewhere in this vicinity. So this monument right here, you can see where they knocked it over. You can see the scrape there where the stone moved off of the base. You can see the scratches on the bottom where it was forced off, and the scratches on the side where it landed on the ground. This one's really bad. They knocked it over and scratched it up really badly. I mean, look at that abrasion and that gouge. I mean, that's as deep as my finger is there, the width of my finger. This little marker has been broken into numerous pieces. Once again, a plain and obvious contrast. You look at the outside surface there, discolored and dirty. You look at the inside, and that is clean, unexposed granite. That was a little marble stone there. That's the base of it. You can see all those fresh marble chunks taken out. Clean white marble next to moldy, mildewy stone. Excuse my sniffling. I've been getting over a little bit of a cold. That one's knocked over and it has scratches and chips taken out of it. Man, this is awful, guys. This is one of the worst things I have seen since I started working in cemeteries. In fact, I'm gonna just go ahead and say that this absolutely takes the cake. So you can see the back of this veteran's marker. His headstone is sinking into his grave. But look at these fresh wounds. I mean, if that is not obvious, they all look the same. It's all fresh. And none of it looked like this before the end of last week when all this started. See, dirty, clean, dirty, clean. The good thing about the VA markers is that hopefully we can order new ones and maybe they'll be replaced for free. But I'm not going to count on that. I'm not entirely sure how that works. Maybe one of you can tell me exactly how the Veterans Administration takes care of that. But you know, this corner was mostly navigable by foot. Most of the cemetery was. It was definitely an effort to move through it, but it wasn't impossible to walk through the cemetery. There was a lot of trees, a lot of vines, you know, all that stuff, but it wasn't like this. I'm not sure if that's a headstone or if that's a base. But there's a piece of something there that's been broken and scratched up. Let's take a walk over here to the back corner. And we'll see the damage back there. But, you know, for as overgrown as this cemetery was last year and into this year, it certainly was not, well, how do you say it? It was, the stones were actually in pretty decent condition. Most of them were intact. See the track marks there. See where they hit the tree. Yeah, most of everything was intact, and we had the pieces to those that were broken. But now a lot of these are just gone, just totally destroyed. Completely and utterly inexcusable. Somebody would do this and just pass it off as a job well done and move along. You can see where from one of their machines they left high temperature red grease on a tree. I guess they greased up something and had some leftovers and they just wiped it on the tree, which will never go away. Grease is not biodegradable, if I recall correctly. Sorry about the music. Some of the neighbors are playing some music. But this headstone here is homemade. Thankfully it was not destroyed, but it was standing upright. It was very visible. To run that one over, or to hit it and knock it over, you had to have been completely ignorant. This one was toppled over. There was a footstone behind it, and it broke that foot marker. This one is really sad. This grave was not on Find a Grave last year. So thankfully we documented it in its best condition. But look at that. Now, the county is trying to say that all of this damage was from Hurricane Helene, or it was all like this when they got here. And it was not. That is a lie. Or somebody just really doesn't know what they're talking about, and they're commenting on things that they should not be commenting on. And this VA stone here has a chunk taken out of it, and one out of the face too, where some equipment hit it. That's a World War I veteran. There's I think another VA marker on this side, which appears thankfully undamaged. I haven't come too far into the side over here. I did not, at least yesterday, and I do think that there were some headstones over here, and what's happened to them now, I am not sure. But there were, I'm almost certain there were some along the side here. But that's where they piled up the majority of their brush, which is almost certainly on top of headstones. And if they weren't damaged when all this debris was piled up on them, then well, they definitely are now, or will be when this is moved. But as far as I know, the workers or whoever the contractor was that did this will not be returning until a better plan for the clearing of the cemetery has been made. But this is completely inexcusable, criminal, negligent, and you may even call it evil. You can just see where the machines came through over and over again. That right there could be a natural rut in the ground where rain pools, or they may have just, or it could be some graves there where they've sunken in and were driven over numerous times. But this is just devastating. Absolutely devastating. There were some field stones and things like that up here, which are now either crushed down into the soil or destroyed, maybe where they're moved elsewhere. This marker I remember very well because of its age and the date on it. It's James Fields, born in 1845, died 1910. I believe he was born into slavery. His headstone was, I have a photo and I'll impose it or edit it in here, but it was that headstone was sitting upright, propped up on the base. So something pushed it or knocked it over and had to have drug it or pushed it a few feet over. In the process, it scratched up and gouged the base and did some damage to the die itself. I mean, come on. How could you not have seen that? And if you could see it, why would you keep going? I mean, I just don't know why. Is it stupidity? Is it evil? I don't understand. That's a Fields family plot marker or foot marker maybe that is displaced now. And they really churned it up down here. I think there were some field stones down here and they're not there anymore. Go figure. I think that's a headstone, or sorry, a base there, which you can see damage on. And then I believe that was the headstone itself. And it looks like half of it's missing. You can see the fresh injury there. God only knows where the other half went, but I don't see it. Here's a perfect example of a field stone grave marker. And who knows if this is where it really belongs to mark the grave. But it was scratched up and run over. And you might say, oh, that's just a rock. It's not like somebody carved it and put time into it or anything like that. It's not a piece of art like these, grave markers are that have, marble or granite that have been chiseled and have pretty designs in them. But that was the marker for somebody's eternal resting place. And I don't care whether it's a rock or they have the most elaborate and ornate grave marker ever made. Oh no, I see something that makes me sick. Oh no, I believe this is the grave of Zenith Thompson, who was a 10-year-old little boy. And it's been completely run over and totally destroyed. This is not repairable. Oh, you have got to be kidding me. You may have to forgive me. I might say some choice words here. I mean, how could you be so stupid or evil? You can still see R-E. But I believe that was the headstone of a little boy. That one we're never getting back. There should be another little Sears Roebuck marker down here, but I have not seen it, and I do not have a good feeling about what may have happened to it. I think that was a base, a homemade slotted base that a tablet would have fit into. That's destroyed. That was definitely a headstone. More than likely it was. Don't know where that belonged. I'm hoping when we make our way down here that we'll find Mingo Ladson. But you can see these bricks. Those bricks are everywhere, and they're very old bricks, and those were definitely used to mark a grave. And that meant a lot to somebody at one time. There's more brick right there. It means a lot to me now. But those were put where they were for a reason, and now they are not where they were. They're not where they belong, and they never will be again, because there's absolutely no way of telling where they belong. I'm pretty sick. I'm not seeing Mingo Ladson anywhere in here. It's not a good sign. I do remember he was down here and his headstone was leaning up against a tree. I thought I saw something up here, but I don't anymore. You can tell the machinery went through these gaps in the trees repeatedly. And so who knows what they may have damaged or destroyed. I want to say his headstone may have been leaning up against this double tree here. I don't see it. And those Sears Roebuck headstones are very, very fragile. They are very fragile. They're made of some kind of compacted sand. I know one of you out there who's a cemetery enthusiast will know even better than I exactly what those were made of, but they typically have not stood well against the test of time. There's just bricks everywhere. Unbelievable, heartbreaking, sickening the way that this cemetery has been treated. There's a piece of a little marker. I have a photograph of this one from last year, and it was in the ground marking the grave where it belongs, and now it is not. That's a piece of that one, I guess. And there's this little marker here. Which was badly scratched up and gouged. There's bricks everywhere. I'm guessing those were probably from a plot, and they're not there anymore. We'll never know where they belong. This brick even has a maker's mark on it, or a location, Cambria. You can tell me where that is, Cambria. I'm not sure, to be honest. That might be part of a headstone there. This is a complete disaster. This is, I think I don't mean to repeat myself, but this is a worst case scenario. These two were spared. Thankfully, they're both homemade markers. See Willie Bynum or Wiley Bynum, 1943, buried July 5th, 1943, by father. Thank God that wasn't destroyed. Amanda Bynum, died in 1943, laid to rest by her husband. Wow. I mean, that's history right there, folks. Those people left their mark, and look how they have been treated. Here's another fragment of the broken stone. I think that one belongs there, or those two pieces belong together. There's a third piece over there. Yeah, here's another VA marker. You can see how badly gouged it is. Got my foot stuck on a vine. Maybe the least we can do is try to uncover it. I'll come back and do that before we leave. But those VA markers are not easy to damage. It takes some serious force to do that, because they were meant to be pretty durable. This family plot is pretty much destroyed. There was a grave there. There is a grave there. You can still see the coping. And there's another one there. And yes, the ground here was a little bit uneven, but it was nothing like this. I mean, this is ridiculous. And this headstone was flipped over. Flipped over. Yeah, you can see where machinery came right through here. You see the track marks right there? Ridiculous. Yeah, whoever did this work is going to be held accountable. I certainly hope they will be, because this is an absurdity. Absolutely crazy. Well, I think that pretty much completes our tragic tour of the present day Brutontown Society Ground Cemetery. I'm sure your heart is as broken as mine is. And there's a little foot marker that may have been a headstone there. It's been chipped. But this is how we treat our history here in Greenville. Nobody cares about it. except for a handful of people, but the people that do care about it don't have a lot of money and power. So I was just doing one last little check through, look around, and I had forgotten to look for this, but thankfully I spotted it. This was a very, very old plot fence that was here around these two trees. I think I do remember there being some more pieces of it, but it's hard to say for sure now. But this was upright last year when we came through here, and it most certainly caught our attention. But it is pretty much destroyed now. They snapped it in half. That was a really cool fixture here in the cemetery. That is no more. Thank you very much for joining me today, even though the circumstances of our meeting are unfortunate. I wish I was doing a really cool abandoned house or making a video about a cemetery that's very well taken care of and that has a positive future. But sadly, when trouble calls, that is typically when I have the time to respond. I have to make the time. I have a family now. I have a full-time job. And as you all know, the world is not an easy place to deal with these days in many regards. But I will never stop fighting to preserve local history. And I will never stop trying to tell the stories of the people that made our communities what they are and today and what they were in their time. But it's very difficult to tell the present generation and future generations about history when the history is wiped off the map, as you have seen here today. This cemetery is pretty much everything but completely destroyed. And that is unacceptable. It's inexcusable. I think I've used that word several times in this video already. And I came down here right after work on the spur of the moment sort of thing, with not much time to film, and I probably won't have a lot of time to edit. But today is August 19th. Tomorrow, Wednesday, August 20th, Maya Payton with WYFF News 4 will be coming here and interviewing myself and some of my good friends and colleagues about what happened here and what it was like before the equipment was brought in to clear the property. So take a look, or keep an eye out for that. That's WYFF News 4. I am not sure what the future holds or how we'll go about repairing these stones or finding someone else to repair them, but what the damage is so significant that I am afraid that the funds may never be allocated to do it, even though it was destroyed by somebody who should have stopped. Said, oh my God, I just ran over a grave marker. I just broke it into pieces. I should stop what I'm doing and figure out a different course of action. But whoever the contractor was who cleared this property did not do that. They destroyed a cemetery. They destroyed a historic property. They destroyed the grave sites and the markers of the graves of possibly dozens or hundreds of people. There are several hundred people buried here. Many of them, and most of them, are probably undocumented because they were slaves and nobody wrote anything down, and if they did, what they wrote down didn't survive the test of time. And all we were left with was this property and the markers that it had, and that's what we were going to hopefully maintain and restore to honor these people, but that's not going to happen the way that we thought it would. So thank you for watching today. Follow me on Instagram at Palmetto Cemeterian. I'm not as active there anymore like I should be, but to be honest with you, I'm just not really interested in social media like I used to be. Although I know that YouTube is social media, but I'm trying to draw attention to things like this and stop them from happening. So if you have a cemetery near you in your community that you think is in danger, say something to somebody. And if they say they're going to clean it up, clarify that it is not acceptable to use heavy equipment to do this kind of job. You would think that that would be obvious, but evidently not. So follow me on Instagram at Palmetto Cemeterian. If you want to see more, there will be more videos in the future, though they may be few and far between, just given where life is right now. But like and subscribe. Comment down below. Tell me what you think. Tell me if you've had a similar experience in your community where you've seen a local cemetery or historic property be ignorantly and foolishly, and we may even say evilly, destroyed. I hope that isn't happening near you, but thank you for watching today. I do sincerely appreciate your viewership if you've stuck all the way through this. It's been a longer video than I intended it to be, but there's just so much to film here. It's numerous acres, several acres of property. So thank you, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.